thrilled to see everyone in one room, finally in person. And I hope you are excited as much as I am. By the way, I can tell you, in fact, that we must have met in the same room, the same dates, but 2 years ago. We had the contract with the same hotel here 2 years ago, but it is what it is. We all know what happened 2 years ago, right? So, the topic we're going to uncover today, freedom to create. And I want to remind you, we started to unleash the topic of creation 6 months ago with this wonderful initiative, Freedom to Create Challenge, when we encourage our community to share your photos that stand for freedom for you, that represent freedom for everyone who participated in this challenge. And let me share with you what was the idea behind this challenge. The whole idea was to remind us that everything we have in mind, all the visions we have, all the dreams we have been given to us with the ability to actually make them real, to make them the reality. Everything that comes to our mind, all the ideas, all the dreams, if we get the dream, it does mean that it will be able to become the reality. That was the whole idea of this challenge. And after this challenge, we had this amazing freedom release in February. You probably remember that. And the whole idea of the freedom release and why we actually called it the freedom release, because it's all about the freedom to create your own apps, your own applications that each of us is envisioning. So please raise your hand who was able to participate in this event, to attend, to see online. Amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us. We had 18,000 registrations for this event. And of course, we couldn't have found a better place to represent freedom as the mountains. So, mountains view, the whole idea around freedom. Sorry about that. I'll go down the road. And Paul Van Dyke. So Paul Van Dyke, for many of us, is the person who does represent freedom with his amazing DJ Freedom tracks, and the one that he put together especially for the community of Creatio. But as you can see on this video, we don't have Paul Van Dyke here in this room, unfortunately. However, we have our second hour, another star, our own star, who participated in this video and who must be in this room. Vlad, are you here with us today? Here is Vlad. So, our own star of the video, who actually put this whole event together because he's our head of marketing. And at the same time, he's our no-coder. So Vlad was putting together this amazing application that you can see on the video. By the way, I can tell you that during the event, we've been getting amazing feedback from attendees. Some of them were saying, hey, I came actually to this event to listen to this Paul Van Dyke's new freedom set. But you guys here do something amazing with this code, so I just want to learn from you. So I never heard of you, I'm going to learn from you. Another group of people were texting us, and can we personally be introduced to Vlad? So that was another group, so he got his own attention as well. Everyone in the world is creating this software now. Let me ask you that. Have you ever thought of the number of new apps that are being published on the Apple Store each and every day? How many new apps published on the Apple Store every day? Make a guess. Who said 1,000? Alex, but you know my slides. I said, why are you doing that? You want to have this ride on helicopter. Okay, I got you. Okay, then let me ask another question. Google Play Store, you're going to be amazed. It's actually much more than Apple. How many apps every day published on Google Play Store? Very close, very close. It's between 2,000 and 5,000. I'm going to get my stickers. So, any idea? Very close. One more try. about creating their own software. Why everyone is passionate about creating their own software? And the answer is very simple. We all know it. Every company becomes a software company these days. Period. Every company becomes a technology company. Let me share with you my personal anecdote that happened to me a year ago. A year ago, I needed to change a car. And I've been a huge fan of Mercedes. Hello to my friends from Germany. Where's Stefan? Okay. Huge fan of Mercedes for many years, driving only Mercedes. But right now I drive Tesla. And I'm still a big fan of Mercedes, but I drive Tesla. Let me tell you why. A year ago, weekend, my husband, my younger son, we get to the car salon to purchase Mercedes, actually. That was the plan. We enter the salon, we're being met by an old-fashioned sales guy who starts doing all these sales tricks with me that we all know by heart, right? All the car dealership sales tricks we all know by heart. And I'm like, we just need to place an order. And he's like, I want to tell you something else, and we need to have a look at these components, and we need to select the options. And we go to his clumsy software. Stephen, please tell Mercedes that they need to change the software. They really need Creatio. And we select these options, and it takes time. And finally, we figure out that this car is not available on the stock. Then we start changing the options again, and my husband is angry. My son is hungry. So we're leaving the salon. Angry, hungry, no car. Going back home, driving back home, and we see this nice Tesla salon. And suddenly my son forgets that he's hungry, and we need to get to Tesla salon ASAP. Okay, we get to Tesla salon, 1 minute, we get a test drive. After the test drive, it was okay, it was nice. I'm still a big fan of Mercedes. After the test drive, we enter the salon, no human interaction. One guy in the salon, he just shows us a nice screen, tells us to go to the screen, select the options, select what we like. Ladies and gentlemen, I haven't noticed how I became the owner of the Tesla. Literally. And just in 5 minutes, I already get text message with a date when my Tesla is going to be delivered. That's it. That's it. This is the story. And let me give you simple stats, very simple stats. Any business can close 30% more deals with automation. And this is a very pessimistic number. And I believe this number continues to grow again and again because we all demand on software today. So, we all understand that software is actually, the business depends on it, employees embrace it, and customers demand it. Question to you. How are we going to do that? Because, ladies and gentlemen, we have only 25 million software developers in the world today. And remind me, how many applications those 25 million software developers need to build? Do you remember the number? 500 million applications. Yeah, I need to give a sticker, otherwise I'm going to be penalized. Okay, so who said, is it Ashok? Okay, 500 million applications. So we need to build 500 million applications, right? And the question is, how can we do that? Because I'm sure that Ashok and all of our partners and customers here want to build it fast and have all the capabilities of changing it as fast as you're building it. So all the traditional ways, package application, custom development, they're just won't work. And that is why we come to no-code. And this is why it's actually not about Creatio, it's about the whole industry. No-code is the only way forward And thank you for this music. That's a very dramatic moment. That's exactly what we need, this music. So no code is definitely the way forward in automation. A year ago, we got a call from the Forbes journalist who was referenced to Creatio by Gardner. His idea was, I want to write about a no-code company that is using their own software. And Creatio runs on Creatio. That's the article which was eventually appeared in Forbes after the interviews he made. Let me tell you about our own Center of Excellence inside Creatio, how we use Creatio internally. And I will give you an example. Of our Chief Growth Officer, Andy. I am here ago. Andy wakes up in the morning with a new idea. We need a new territory management approach. We need to completely re-engineer, we need to completely change territory management here at Creatio, how we do it globally. In the morning, he gets this idea, he comes to the office, over small break, coffee break, he presents this idea to me, it sounds amazing, he's like, okay, I'm gonna do it right now. Gives a call to our Center of Excellence and immediately starts prototyping. This is what I love about no-code, that when you get the idea, you start building it from scratch immediately. He starts prototyping. After that, he starts getting feedback from his peers in order to deliver it as fast as possible. 2 weeks after this morning, when Andy woke up with a new territory management idea for Creatio, it was already available for the users. And we already were starting to get feedback, and this MVP was developing and developing again. So this feedback loop started to work. Right now, do we have sales? Do we have sales representatives of Creatio? Okay, we have AZ, of course. So AZ, tell us, do you like the territory management that Dov actually invented in the middle of April?
No, we loved it. In fact, the teams immediately upon seeing it gave feedback. I think by the end of that day, changes were already being made from the team's feedback. So, huge fans.
Thank you very much. And Andy, thank you for waking up with great ideas in the morning, okay? Never stop, okay? And you're gonna tell me, Creatio is a mid-sized organization. We have less than 1,000 employees. And you're gonna tell me, how would it work with a large organization with dozens of thousands of employees? And here, I'd love to share with you another amazing example of a client of Creatio, Israeli government, who actually, thanks to our amazing partner, Oren. Hello, Oren from Israel. Proceed. Thank you very much. They learned about Creatio during the pandemic time, less than 2 years ago. And we started with 150 users of Creatio. And now we're having 6,000 users of Creatio. But the most interesting thing about this no-code implementation is actually the answer to the question. How big was the team, the Center of Excellence, that built the software for Israeli governments to make 6,000 people use this software? And to answer this question, let's first watch the video that our amazing customer put together.
Country infrastructure management. Let's talk about it. Paperwork, delays, lack of transparency, these obstacles hinder processes and waste time. So how did we manage to coordinate infrastructure projects quickly and effectively? Presenting Israel's national coordination platform built on top of Creatio. The integrated platform is everything one needs to coordinate infrastructure projects from their laptop directly. A web interface where all functionaries can transparently communicate and collaborate in an agile, organized, and intelligent environment. With a national coordination platform, you can quickly create your request online and track the progress through your profile on an as-needed basis. Impressive, isn't it? It's everything it was before, but without setbacks, without lots of emails, bureaucratic delays, unclear requirements, and endless paperwork. And there's more. The platform interfaces with external information systems. It automatically generates documents and sends files, supports digital signature, and displays reports, metrics, and insights. What about platform feedback? We listen to all feedback and perform required updates as needed. The project was initiated and is supported by the Prime Minister's Office, the Ministry of Finance, and the Ministry of Transportation, and is carried out by the IT department of Netivei, Israel. Many critical organizations working with state infrastructure already use the platform. We expect to include all local authorities and vital Israeli companies in the future. The digitalization of processes will help shorten schedules, cut expenses, and make easy and efficient workflows for us and Israeli citizens.
Amazing. So, Oren, first and foremost, congratulations with this project. Great, great, great job. But secondly, we have to ask you, we need to know, how big is your fusion team that is implementing and has implemented this project?
At the stage of the movie, it was only myself and one employee.
Ooh! But now you must have skills.
Now we're 6.
Okay, so this is something. Amazing.
With
So
the
6
help
people.
of Sayok Digital and Creatio.
Wonderful, wonderful. 6 people. And please tell me, out of 6 people, how many no-coders and how many real developers?
We have 5 CAs, only one developer.
So we have 5 no-code developers and we have 1 professional code developer. And this is the team that is actually supporting the project for 6,000 users of Israeli government. That's the magic of no-code. Thank you very much, Oren, again. So, ladies and gentlemen, we see no-code is as not just a technology, but a very, very important strategic advantage and strategy of the organization. And I want to share with you the most impactful project that has been built on the Creatio platform that brought not only competitive advantage or made the users' lives easier, it actually saved lives. Many of you know that Creatio is very much engaged into what's going on in Ukraine. We support multiple volunteering organizations. We do a lot for the country in all different aspects. And one day in March, I got a call from the Ukrainian government saying that the challenge they're having right now is to how to distribute humanitarian aid that is coming to the country. How to organize the workflows around humanitarian aid logistics. And we gave a call to our amazing partner in Ukraine, the company named Banza. And we said that we have an inquiry and we'd love to give this platform to the Ukrainian government to manage the workflows for the humanitarian aid. However, we need to build the workflows. Can you do that? And immediately, that's a great company. They currently have around 200 certified experts in Creatio. So they definitely didn't need all 200, but a small group of people put together the workflows. I got this call from the government on Tuesday. Over the weekend, the system was up and running. Over the weekend. 4 days from the moment we got a call. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, Ukraine has 5,000 organizations connected to the system and helping and participating actually in this humanitarian aid and providing humanitarian aid to Ukraine. So that's probably the most impactful project I ever had in my whole life. And I want to ask you to give a round of applause to the CEO of Banza. This is Creatio partner from Ukraine, and she arrived to this conference from Ukraine, and she is here in the room today.
Thank you, Tuesday to Friday. We just,
So on
need
Saturday it was deployed.
we just needed
and
servers to
weekend.
deploy, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Victoria. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to invite to the stage my first guest for this keynote. That's another amazing client of Creatio, a leader, a technology leader for Bayshore healthcare company. And we're going to have a conversation about how the healthcare industry is changing and how Bayshore is utilizing Creatio. Steven, come on here. Thank you very much. Here is your mic.
Wow.
So, let's start with the healthcare industry. We all know that healthcare is getting through large transformations, and tell me why no-code is so important for you guys today.
So we have a major problem in healthcare right now, especially in Canada. It's highly regulated. We tend to, in our organisation, we tend to throw developers, and to that slide earlier where there's not much of a pool of developers, we tend to throw developers at problems versus look at the coding or a lower code option. Because it's highly regulated, we tend to go through around about 140 audits per year through the Canadian government. It's a social, it's not like the US healthcare system, it's more of a social system, like the UK system. And we find that our IT group is kind of just overwhelmed with enhancements to CRMs, completely backlogged, we're never getting projects out the door on time. So in our industry, we are a major service provider for specialty drugs, oncology drugs, MS drugs, highly specialised drugs across the globe. And we service patients through drug programs. So for example, Pfizer would be a partner for our service, and they would provide the drug and then we would distribute the drug to the patients. There's demands from various pharmaceuticals in our space all the time to innovate, become more digital, and to get stuff to market quicker. And we just can't. We just don't have the ability to get stuff out the door. And that's because we always throw a developer at the problem, which then takes us 6 months, 8 months to actually code something meaningful to get it out of the door.
And you need it within days.
We need it within days. And what's happening as well in our industry, because the methodologies that pharmaceuticals use are old, archaic. You know, we're still in the fact of waterfall methodology, whereby you deliver a project over a period of time and you get what you get and that's it. What my role is really entailing now, because I'm the National Director of Innovation, is changing that mindset in regards to how we go about delivering new initiatives quicker to market. For me, it's always about speed and agility.
So you're building the center of excellence inside Bayshore.
Yeah, so Bayshore, it's completely an alien concept to our organisation, the COE. So one of the roles, previously I've been in the industry about 22 years, I built a centre of excellence through BlackBerry, the old days of BlackBerry. And my role is really to build a COE that's going to become more efficient and actually take it above the IT group to make the business and the IT groups talk together more efficiently. So we're going to place a COE at the top, and then we're going to create a funnel system with a governance component in the middle, whereby SMEs or subject matter experts from various groups within the organisation can actually help us decide what is a priority and what isn't. Underpinning that, we're going to put the Creatio platform right there, smack in the centre. That will also help us with the filtering of those opportunities, enhancements, projects, to be able to pick out which ones are quick wins. For me, it's all about the quick win. What can we deliver quickly, efficiently, and can cost save? Because we can't keep hiring to plug that gap. We just can't.
By the way, how many people work at Bayshore as an organization?
We're about a 5,000 people organisation across the whole of Canada, top to bottom. We have an IT group which has doubled over the pandemic, purely because we're plugging the gap. So we were 150. We're now about 300 people, developers.
Okay.
And again, we get a project to come along. We just let's hire to fill that void.
Yeah.
Whereby I want to take that and completely turn it around and go with a low-code option.
Love it. Stephen, thank you very much. Listen, amazing story. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you. How are we collaborating between COE, IT, and business? How can we build or inbuild all the governance checks? How can we make sure that everything that has been built on the platform is GDPR compliant? How can we make sure that everything that has been built on the platform does follow the requirements of the information security within our company? How actually we can deliver every day. You guys are saying us that it should be everyday delivery. How exactly can we do that? Because our DevOps processes are delivering, allow us to deliver every month. So we get all these questions, and in order to answer these questions, ladies and gentlemen, we decided to put together a book. The whole no-code methodology that will answer all the tough and hard questions that you are asking. And talking about the reason why this methodology even needs to exist, no-code development, and I hope that I already proved it with all these examples, is very, very different from the traditional development. We do prototyping. Instead of documenting, we just prototype the solution. We design all the requirements that our users want inside the application immediately. We can't allow the time frame, the long time frame between the prototype and the MVP. We want this to happen like in the example of Creatio within a couple of weeks, or like in the example of the Ukrainian project within a few days. We have a new role, no coders. And this is absolutely fascinating to see more and more job offerings for the no-coders, for the no-code developers out there. So we need to define what actually this role is doing. Fusion teams, we're building the fusion teams where developers collaborate with those no-coders. And the last but not the least, everyday delivery. The mantra here, the message here is to deliver every day. So how can this be done? The answer to all these questions is going to be published in a no-code playbook that will be released shortly, and which is almost ready. And we're going to have, as you know, probably the whole track today devoted to the no-code playbook. But right now, let me unlock it a little bit and start by saying that the whole book is divided into 3 big chapters. The first one is design. And actually, this picture here is exactly opposite to what we promote in the book. The whole idea is design with the no-code tools. Don't use pen and pencil and paper to design. Use your no-code tools to design. The second chapter is going to be about MVP and how we go live as soon as possible, as soon as we potentially can. And finally, everyday delivery. Incremental improvements, continuous improvement, this feedback loop, everything about everyday delivery. So 3 big chapters that are combined in the no-code methodology that Creatio is developing together with absolutely brilliant product leader who has been working in the no-code space, no-code industry for many years. Shall I say for how many years? For many years, and one of the biggest evangelists of no-code in this country. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Burley Kawasaki, our co-author of the book. Here is your mic, and let's start with actually your approach to no-code. You've been such a huge fan for so many years. Why do you believe in no-code?
Well, and I will tell you how long I've been in the space. Shockingly, it is, and I know you couldn't tell from my gray hair, but almost 20 years that I've been involved in sort of advanced development with visual tools, fourth generation languages, model-driven programming. It's come a very long ways. And I think the thing that's so exciting about no-code now, compared to where it's been, is just the accessibility to the tool sets. These tools have always been, you know, the vision has been very powerful, but oftentimes have been very complex. It required a lot of heavy lifting from technologists to set up and to use. They're very brittle. But now the accessibility by the business, by allowing and enabling the business, the non-developers to have access to these tools is a real breakthrough. And so it's the most exciting thing I've seen, and it energizes me to see where this will go over the next 5 to 10 years.
Amazing. You and I have heard a ton of myths about no code.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about those myths. What have you heard over the course of your career? Share with us.
Well, one of the myths you always hear that comes up is, oh, this is going to put developers out of jobs. But, I mean, clearly, and Katherine sort of touched on this, that is not the case. I mean, when you look at the supply and demand imbalance, right, 500 million apps, I mean, there's so much demand, there's so few developers. In fact, the number of developers is shrinking because of COVID. The number of computer science graduates and technical degrees in the schools has declined. So it's almost getting worse. And so the answer to a lot of that, though, is no code and expanding the development pool to non-developers. But that is a myth that I always hear. I think the other myth that you hear a lot is, oh, this is going to create a real problem with shadow IT. That if this gets wild, it's going to run amok inside my enterprise. I got to control it. I got to put it under lock and key. When in fact, the absolutely opposite is the truth, right? If you're a forward-looking CIO or chief digital officer, right, rather than let the business sort of find their own software devs and write custom code that you don't know about, it's a lot better to establish a platform that allows them to build with the freedom that they need to and the speed that they want to, but that is secure, that is governed, that is controlled. So I think no code actually, properly implemented from a platform perspective, helps prevent shadow IT. And so that's one of the myths that I hear a lot, but is actually not true.
And what about the myth of no code being not the right technology for large enterprises?
Yeah, that one again has come a long ways. I think even like 5, 10 years ago, you saw a lot of the common sort of low-code first-gen apps. A lot of them were very simple. They were trivial apps, but you saw examples like the Israeli government. I mean, there's all sorts of examples now that you point to where these are business-critical applications. Their process, their workflow runs on no code. So that one is has been proven wrong as well.
Amazing. So let's start uncovering the content, okay? Let's start with the first chapter. And that's my favorite quote from Alice in Wonderland. If you don't know where you want to go, then probably it doesn't matter which way to go, right? So that's a wonderful conversation with the Cheshire Cat. And let's elaborate on the design stage. Where will you start?
Well, the important thing here is, they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The design is really in the eye of your business and the business stakeholder. So it starts with, identifying the business stakeholder, having them articulate the use case in terms of the process, in terms of the requirements, not getting into how, but just understanding and focusing on the process and the use cases. Selecting then the right options that you can choose. You may build it all in the no-code platform. You might be combining no-code and off-the-shelf software. It might include some custom development components. So developing the right overall solution architecture is an important part of stage 2. Then quickly moving into design and prototyping. Katherine just talked about this, that it's not an exercise in throwaway prototypes that then you have to start over. This is actually starting to use the no-code tools, and by doing prototyping in the tools much earlier than traditional software development allows, you get so much better feedback. And so with the stage 3, you don't want to go deep on any area. The key here is actually to keep your vision and your design very broad at this point, not constrained by how much can you fit into that first release, but looking at the broad vision. When you get to that last stage, the project assignment, you are starting to scope down to what will go into that first go-live release. And so you do need to start honing in on time, resources, assigning the right delivery model. Are you going to be delivering it just with the business no-code team that you have? Do you need to involve a fusion team, so pull in professional developers? Do you need to enlist the help from a center of excellence? There's a number of different options that you make those decisions based on the complexity of the project in this stage. That's a quick run through of the design phase.
Absolutely, and just to add a few highlights. at the prototyping stage, it is so important to see the full picture, to see the broad picture, as Burley just said. And then, honestly, probably the hardest part of the design stage is to figure out, okay, so which part of this broad picture is going to be released during the MVP stage.
Yeah, and the answer is eventually you'll get to everything in the vision, but it's a matter of sequencing. What do you start with? What is the most critical use case or set of use cases that will unlock value for that first go live?
Wonderful. And then we move to the next stage, and we're going to start it with a quote of the famous Mario Andretti. You probably know, the American racer, who says, if everything seems under control, you're not going fast enough. I love this quote because it's not only about the software, it's about our lives in general, right? So let's talk about the go live stage.
Okay, so this stage is all about speed, right? And the great thing about no code is, again, you're not starting from a dead stop, or start rather, where you've got a specification and then you're starting to have to build out all the levels of the application infrastructure. You have a working application already that was developed in the prototype phase, right? And so that really allows you to take that and immediately start elaborating and evolving it by adding small features. And so you can do it much more incrementally than traditional software development. You can use techniques like Kanban, we'll talk more about this in the playbook, to really sort of manage the flow of small incremental enhancements into the application. It's important that while this is happening, parallel to stage 5 is a feedback loop. So rather than waiting to the end with sort of a big user acceptance test or phase, you're getting user feedback continuously, partly because the users are in the team in all likelihood, plus it allows you to incrementally get feedback use case by use case as opposed to having to wait until the completion of the app. So this is very iterative, you're moving very quickly. It's important though that no matter how fast you're going, that there are some important governance checks that you need to not sacrifice. Again though, the size and scale of governance will vary depending on the size or scale of your application. So part of the guidance you need to understand, and we'll provide some tools and an application matrix that allows you to figure out which checks are important based on your application and your requirements. So for some highly regulated industries, you may have to go through certain industry-driven requirements, and maybe internal controls for security, for compliance. There's also checks that you need to do just to internally check consistency, conflict management across different parts of the organization. When all this is done, though, you're ready for the first release. This is, especially in a no-code world, this release is not a big deal, right? Because a lot of the deployment is actually fully automated. It's more of a continuous deployment into production, but you have to make sure that you are getting final approval from the stakeholder. You have to do enablement of the user population. You have to be ready so that the environments are set up. So there are things that are usually pretty automated, but there are other human elements like enablement and user training, process change that you have to be ready as part of the release.
And we're going to talk a lot about the importance of going live ASAP, of delivering this accelerated time to market. I love another quote of Einstein just came to my mind. Try to make everything as simple as possible, but not simpler. But that's exactly about the MVP stage. We want the simplest end product in the beginning to start getting this user feedback and to provide value to our end users. This is all about go live stage, and that is why we have the whole stage devoted to one particular step, which is releasing the MVP, okay? And we're moving to the third stage here, and here is Sam Walton with his famous, to succeed in this world, you have to change all the time. And again, it relates not only to the software, but to our businesses in general, to any part of our business, to any part of the workflow. And this phase never ends. Everyday delivery, that's the key mantra of the no-code methodology. Let's go a little bit deeper here.
Well, in traditional software development cycles, there's a lot of pressure to bloat the first release because you don't know when the next features will get added, right? It could be years, it could be months. The whole focus of no-code is everyday delivery. You're continuously releasing software updates. You don't have to wait until the next quarter or the next year. You can release when ready, right? And so that really drives you towards a much more continuous stream of collecting feedback from users. So as soon as you go live, the great thing about going live is you got a lot of people giving you feedback, and so both through anecdotal feedback, but also importantly through structured and system feedback, you want to synthesize that together. We'll talk about how you collect and aggregate feedback to make decisions then on what those incremental improvements should be. A lot of times these are small fixes. You can make them really quickly, turn them around the same day or very fast. But you have to have change management controls in place so that you can ensure that the pushes of features out there are also not going to either disrupt the system or disrupt the process, disrupt the users. So, but still, the goal is to get changes out as rapidly as possible to really support that everyday delivery model. And so everyday delivery, again, when you're ready to release, there's this notion of continuous delivery, right, which allows you, without having to manually do a lot of steps to release to production, that you can push changes of features, of updates to the application out very rapidly, and that allows you to really also reduce the amount of change that the users see. It's interesting, when you put out lots of small changes, it's easier for users to consume those changes because they see much smaller changes day to day, whereas if you batch out a whole bunch of changes and you wait 6 months, then actually the change management is a lot harder for the user population. The last stage is very important is as you make these changes and as time passes, you need to have mechanisms for continuously sort of monitoring and auditing the health, right? Think about it, it's like anything. If were training or you were losing weight for a big milestone, at some point after, you start bloating your weight up again or life goes on. Same is true with applications. They get bloat of features or they evolve, but maybe not the way that the rest of the business or the process is changing. And so there's an important feedback loop to audit to make sure that the fitness of the application is maintained, that it's in lockstep with the rest of the business or the process. There will be audit steps that may be required by governance or security. So there's a bunch of mechanisms there that, again, will provide a framework that allows you to determine how often and what kinds of audit steps should you be taking for applications that are live in production.
Amazing. And the crown jewel of the book is going to be the application matrix. With all the challenges that different organizations, depending on their size, face when developing the software, we decided to put together the matrix that will actually define how, what are the resources that you guys are going to need to implement one workflow versus the other. And we split this matrix into 3 parts, which are business complexity, governance complexity, and then the technical complexity. So based on the complexity level, you're going to either do your implementation just with no coders, with business delivery, employees from the business units can do the job for you, and you're not going to need the center of excellence, or you won't going to need fusion teams or software developers, and vice versa. If we're talking about very complex regulations, if we're talking about very important security aspects for you type of the business, or just complex processes, or for example, the other example is distributed processes, when you're covering dozens of different countries with different ways of running the business, with different languages. So in all these cases, you might need to engage either your center of excellence or the fusion teams to actually deliver the results.
Just one maybe comment about the book. When Katherine and I first started planning it, the earliest stages, one of the things we realized early on is this has to be a very practical guide, right? This is not an academic text. This is not something where you have to, analyze and stare at this and, interpret how to apply it. We're going to try to give a lot of templates and frameworks and tools throughout the content, and we've organized it around this notion of the full life cycle. So it's very easy to identify at what stage that you're in, what are the right tools, what are the right questions to ask. So, it's meant for everyone in the room. It's meant for people who are building no-code applications or, designing no-code applications. And, hope that practicality comes through with things like the application matrix that you see here.
And Burla and I can't wait to continue the conversation about the no-code playbook just actually in, how many, 30 minutes? Yes, just after the break, after we wrap up with the keynote part and have a break, in the room over there, a no-code playbook room, going to dive deep into the details of the application matrix and all the stages of the no-code playbook. Burley, very much thank you. Exciting. Okay, so let me summarize the no-code playbook principles. And there are just 3 of them, just very simple 3 principles that we want everyone to remember. The first one is, please use no-code tools to summarize your requirements for the application. Develop on the fly. Only in the most complex cases you need a piece of paper and you need your laptop to put the documentation together. In all the other cases, you can do it with the no-code tools. Secondly, everything that can be done with the no-code should be done with the no-code. I love this example of UREN and Israeli government who automated 6,000 users with the engagement of 5 no-coders and only 1 professional software developer. Isn't it a magic? That's exactly how no-code works. Do everything you can do with the no-code tools. Only in a case of very, very complex integrations, for example, you will need to engage professional developers. And the last but not the least, and I'm terribly sorry for repeating it again and again, deliver to end users as fast as you can. Time to market matters. Time to market sometimes matters more than anything. So principle number 3, deliver to end users as fast as you can. And ladies and gentlemen, here I'm excited to welcome to the stage my last guest for the keynote today. Definitely last but not the least, a great customer of Creatio, Vitaquinol company, a pharmaceutical company. Jeff, please come to stage. Keynote conversation with Jeff. Vitaquinol has been a client of Creatio for 3 years now, right? So we celebrate the anniversary, 3 years together.
Yep, almost to the day.
Thank you, thank you. So first of all, thank you very much for this partnership. We really appreciate it. Secondly, Jeff has exactly this complex case with 12 different regions automated with Creatio. And every region has a ton of unique special requirements. And I'd love to have a conversation with Jeff. How exactly what was your even strategy about this approach? The consistency, or every region you can do whatever you want, or we want exactly the same processes across all the 12 regions. But let's start with the introduction. If you could briefly tell us about the history, that's an amazing company that you represent, almost 100 years old, right, company. So tell us about the company, about the use case, and then we're going to talk about the strategy.
Sure, yeah. As you said, Vitaquinol is almost a 100-year-old company. We were founded in 1933 in France, and we are an animal health, pharmaceutical, and nutraceutical company. So what that probably should say to anyone hearing that description is not technology-based, So it really resonates with me when you mentioned earlier that every company has to be a technology company now, right? And about 3, 4, or 5 years ago, when we started looking at what we were going to do for the next stage of our CRM, we really kicked off not just looking for a CRM, but a digital transformation for the company overall. And I'm really pleased to say now that I consider us a very much a technology company whose business is animal health and pharmaceuticals rather than just being an animal health company. And as you mentioned, we have subsidiaries. Our business model is that our corporate headquarters is in France, but we have subsidiaries all over the world, and we have a great deal of autonomy in the subsidiaries. We have core functions and consistencies at the corporate level, but there's a lot of decision making and a lot of difference in business models from one subsidiary to another. So we don't often take a top-down approach of saying, this is how everyone's going to do it right out of the gate. We might take on an endeavor and do it in very different ways in different countries, and then have to come back later and figure out, well, how are we going to make this consistent? So.
And how remember that your strategy has been changing over time. Is it correct?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's one of the real highlights to me. I think one of the real successful parts of our journey with Creatio has been that when we launched Creatio in Wave 1, which was the US, the Canadian, and the French subsidiaries, we didn't have a lot of people yet that were very experienced with large software deployments, with software deployment strategy, etc. So we went our typical route of, hey, these 3 countries are going to start, and let us know for the next countries how to do it right.
You started with France, Canada, the
And
US.
The US, yeah. And we really, those 3 countries, we very much went, even though we had a core model when we launched the 3, each one very quickly started going its own direction on what to implement, what customizations to make, etc. So here we are down the road, 3 years later, we have 12 countries that have implemented Creatio, and in Wave 2, we started getting a lot more consistent with how those countries applied the same customizations, the same changes. But the really cool part, what I think is a really big hallmark of success, is how much we've been able to retroactively create the consistency between the Wave 1 countries and the others. Fantastic example of that is right now we have, of course, the primary users in every country are our sales force. And when a salesperson is creating a visit in 12 different countries, there are probably 12 different workflows in Creatio about how we create the visits. But we recently embarked on a project to change that. We now have our informal center of excellence, our administrators from each country, working together to define what are the best practices there, build one interface that we are now going to be able to put into each country's instance of Creatio and have a consistent experience from one subsidiary to another.
Yeah, and this is actually an amazing example how you started with the approach, everyone does whatever you want, just deliver the business, and right now the approach is consistency across all the regions.
Yeah, and in fact, this is I think a great example of something that you mentioned about shadow apps, right? We've always been concerned as Keynote has employed more people that have a background in IT and technology. We've introduced the concept of shadow IT and shadow apps. This is a big concern, right? In my previous life, I worked for Microsoft for about 17 years, and shadow apps were like the worst profanity that you could mention at Microsoft. You know, if you were accused of shadow apps, then it's almost heresy, right? So at Keynote, we have this situation that traditionally somebody would look at and say, you've got 12 organizations that have all built their own shadow IT here, and we say, oh no, look, the tool actually is very forgiving and lets us consolidate those into a consistent structure, but at the same time didn't stifle the innovation that came. So it's funny, instead of saying we have shadow app situation, what we have is a highly innovative and highly agile scenario that is still able to come together into consistency later. And I think that's greatly due to the flexibility and forgiveness that the tool offers.
Amazing. And I also noticed that you automate with the no-code platform, not just CRM processes, although you started 3 years ago only with the CRM processes, is it correct?
Yeah,
but then you expand, adding more and more different workflows. Can you tell me about this strategy as well?
Yeah. So basically, when we started 3 years ago, our really top primary concern was getting users to actually use the system. Because again, especially in a non-technology industry, you get a lot of folks who say, I've been doing sales in this industry for 25 years. I don't need a machine to help me. I don't need software to help me, right? So our real focus was show them the value of using the tool and get them to use the tool. Well, we have that problem solved now. We have no problem with people adopting and using the tool. So now we can focus on what more can the CRM enable us to do. So in the US, Creatio is a fully integrated part of our BI ecosystem, and most of our conversations when we start a new business process start with what should Creatio take care of, what should BI take care of, and what else do we need to integrate in. And for me personally, it's a fantastic change over 3 years to see that now we have data flowing between Creatio and our in our BI system. We have automated data flows going every single day, just like we did in my former technology company. And keep in mind, this is an industry where most of the participants feel like if I send an Excel file to somebody once a month, that's automation, right? So,
and you have so many anecdotes, by the way, about your.
Yeah, it's a really.
Tell me one of those. Tell me one of those.
So we quite literally this was a fun instance, but we had a distributor at one time that was engaged in some rather questionable behaviors that we were trying our best to unearth. We wanted to see, are they really doing this or not, selling to the wrong person, etc. And this was literally a company that they struggled every month to export data to an Excel file to send over to us, right? They had hired an outside consulting company that I think probably milked them for a couple of months, but when they had to do it manually at one point, they accidentally sent us their raw data instead of their doctored data, and it exposed, yes, we are actually doing this question.
So they definitely need Creatio, I guess.
Exactly. They would have been a lot better off if they were using Creatio, and then they could have hidden things better. I don't know that I'd recommend it as a best practice, but we really love that aspect of it, that this is, at Microsoft, we just assume with any data source, we can move data from here to here on a scheduled basis every 15 minutes if we want to. This is just a norm of the industry, right? In the animal health industry, moving data around is often seen as a real hassle. This is something that you're asking me to really spend a lot of time if you want to.
And despite your experience at Microsoft for so many years, you still selected, the company selected Creatio rather than all the other CRM vendors.
Yep.
Although, tell me, why? Is it because you like the CRM features of Creatio more, or because your vision was from the most beginning to build all and automate all your workflows on the platform, not only the CRM processes?
Yeah, that's really it. We, number one, our company does do a very, very small amount of application development internally, just enough to realize how challenging application development is, right? So that was one of our big decision points for why we need to look for a real CRM solution, because it's not something that we wanted to continue pursuing internally. So when we did that, when we started looking for the CRM, one of our primary considerations was we want to make sure that we have a tool that can adapt to our business. We never want the business to be constrained by the limits of whatever technology that we're using. So, and I think that everybody involved in the decision making, when we compared Creatio to competitors, we're very convinced that this is the tool that we can make support our business. And when we have mastered our basic business functions, we've seen all sorts of quotes today about how you have to constantly evolve, your business constantly has to change to survive, right? Well, we want to feel confident that when our business does change, that we can very, very easily change the tools that are driving the business to support what those changes are. And again, very important in a business where you mentioned the number of people on the team. Most of our subsidiaries have one person who's responsible. Yeah. And that person quite often is also the BI guy, and maybe the IT person, might be managing the O365 rollout, so yeah, so we don't have we run very lean. We don't have a set of 50 IT people that can focus on making changes to the CRM. It has to be easy and it has to be quick.
And lean.
Yep, very, very lean, yeah.
Jeff, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, Jeff will be speaking here at 12:30.
Yeah, 12:30.
In this room, 12:30, please join his presentation. Thank you very much again. Thank you. And everyone, welcome to the no-code journey. And I wish everyone to have very productive and very fun 2 days here together with Creatio.